Once again, we have spilled into a different discussion. So here you go, part 2 of this discussion.
That's Kamon.
That's Kevin.
And we're implicitly biased. It is incredibly all over the place.
Oh yeah.
One guy we'll just use weed. One guy could have an ounce of weed, and another guy have an ounce of weed. One guy will go away for 10 years, the other guy will get 6 months, and he's out.
Well, what they did in the '90s, when black people say stuff like it's a systemic racism, and they put it into the system, it is built into the framework of the system. When we say that, it's one of those just catch words and those catchphrases. It's one of those things that people hear and just kind of like, oh, here they go again. They're just trying to complain, play their card or whatever. But in the '90s, when the crack and the heroin epidemic was going on, and it was like really hitting its stride and it was going crazy, the crack had a different set of punishments than heroin had. Mm-hmm. The same exact thing. In fact, crack is like cut with like baking soda or whatever they could find to make it cheaper and to dumb it down and all that kind of stuff. So you take the lesser product, the poor man's drug, and you give it 2 and 3 times the penalty for the one that the rich man drug. Well, who are the people that are getting the poor man's drug? Mm-hmm. It is obviously poor whites, but in great numbers, it's blacks, mm-hmm. Latinos, and Asians. Those are, and predominantly black, but black, Latinos, and Asians. And then you lock them up indiscriminately because they're having this substance that's the real bad substance. But in actuality, heroin is the purest form. It's the thing that's really, messing people up. You know what I mean? And they're like, oh, no, we'll give light sentences. So somebody, like you said, somebody could have really 3 times the amount of heroin, cocaine, or whatever. But crack, you know what I'm saying? They have a sniff of this stuff and they go away for 10 years. Like, it's just the way that the system is set up. It's the way that they wrote it into the books. And that speaks to the point that the system doesn't even look fair. The system doesn't even appear that it's trying to be fair. Anybody who really wants to look at the system, it's easy for somebody like you, but somebody like you to say like, oh no, the system's fine. But the fact that you can even see like, man, this system is screwed up and it has a lot of flaws and a lot of issues speaks to where I hope we're going as a society. I hope as a society we're able to see and be like, yeah, that's some bull right there.
Well, I think a big part of it is when you're only on one side or the other, you're only going to see what that side tells you.
Yeah.
If you're over here on the side that say cops are bad, you're only going to see that cops are bad. If you're over here and say that glorifies cops to the utmost, you're only gonna see that thin blue line. Right. But if you're in the middle with your eyes open and you can see, why is that guy treating that guy different than that guy over there? Right. Why did that guy pull over that guy and not that guy for doing this guy was doing a worse crime or the same exact crime?
Right.
It's rampant, and I think the big problem is people don't want to.
Right.
They don't want to see both sides. They're so trained in seeing their one side that that's all they want to see. That's all they're ever going to see, and that's what they're going to teach their kids to see, and the system just keeps on going that way.
Right. And and the thing, even like with the whole cop situation, we live in a town in Arizona where it's a good mixture of people, especially for a town in Arizona.
Yeah, right.
We have an amazing mixture of races and ethnicities and everything like that. So there's some towns in Arizona where it's like 99%
or it's Mexican,
So we have a good diversity. And so not too long ago, I was in our largest park. And I had my dogs and my family were all out, and all around the park there was probably about 4 or 5 people out there with their dogs, and they're all playing, and we're all playing, no problem, we're all having a good time, everybody there in different sections of the park, and a police officer comes, and this police officer happens to be mixed, so he's not just a white person or whatever. It's easy just to say, oh, the white cop, but he was a mixed police officer. And the police officer drives back and forth around in the park, back and forth and back and forth. And then they stop near me and my family, get out, and they tell me, oh, well, we have a leash law. You got to, put your dogs on a leash. And I said, oh, I know. I said, but the reason I let my dogs off is because I see everybody else out here with their dogs. Oh yeah, well we got a call that there was a guy out with two dangerous pit bulls, blah blah blah. And I'm like, well, it's not me. I'm not the guy. Well, it was supposed to be a Hispanic guy with a green shirt, and I said, well, you can see how I would feel that this is kind of like racially motivated, because there's a white guy over there with a border collie, and there's another white guy over there with a Labrador, and I just went, and I'm like, and all of them are playing with their dogs. All of them are having a good time. And they're all off leash, and I'm neither Hispanic. I'm not Hispanic at all. Yeah, I don't look Hispanic. I mean, well, there's some black Hispanics, but you understand what I'm saying. I'm not Hispanic, and I'm doing nothing different than anybody else is. I said, but I'll comply. I'm not going to argue with you. You know. I said, but you can see why I would feel that it was, racially motivated. Oh, well, I'm going to go talk to those people right now. I said, but yet you come and talk to me first. And the only reason you're going to talk to them is because I pointed them out. Yeah. Well, thank you for pointing them out, sir. Like, and to me, I'm like, come on, man. Like, you don't see, I hate to go to that place, but you're a brother, and you can't see how you came and talk to me first, but I have respect for police officers. I have respect for the law, but situations like that always puts things in your mind. Like, there's literally 3 other people out here playing with their dogs, and the first one you go to, and really the only one you intended to go to, was the ones who looked a certain way and had a certain breed of dog. Because I think that plays a part too. It does. I think it's not just us. I think it's, okay, they got the pit bulls, and they have, they're of a darker persuasion. They must be the Hispanics everybody was talking about. Yeah. Nobody in my family, well, I can't say that either, because I have people who look Hispanic, but nobody who was out there that day looked Hispanic. So I don't know, but I do agree with you that people who make false reports like that, all those memes about that lady who was mad because the people were barbecuing. And it's not just that lady. It's rampant with people calling because they don't like people. And that's what happened in your situation. And that's what happened in all those situations. I definitely think there should be some sort of punishment for wasting the cop's time. Because at the most, least, that's what it is. Yeah. It is wasting the cop's time, because they always get out there and they find out these people are having a day at the park. Exactly. These people are doing what they want in their own yard. Exactly. Why are you calling on these people? At the very least, like a minimum, you called me for no reason fee. Well, if you think about it, that lady came out of nowhere to disturb your peace. That should be a disturbing the peace ticket. I agree with you. If the cop comes out there and he's going to be like, why are you even calling? These people are doing their thing. Well, this little girl doesn't have a business license. Neither does the white girl over there, but you had to harass this one. Well, that was my daughter. Oh, okay, now disturbing the peace ticket. Yeah. And I think that's a big problem is they probably don't want to pay for it. I can't say why they don't give disturbing the peace. Maybe that doesn't meet the criteria. I would think it would, though. Right. Just like a speeding ticket is a speeding ticket. Disturbing the peace is disturbing the peace. Right. You're disturbing somebody's peace. Right. There should be a ticket for that. Right. But I've always said in cases like that, it's implicit bias. It is, absolutely. It's implicit bias. But it's also implicit bias for the way the different societies perceive, or the different cultures perceive police officers. Yes. And what I've seen, because I'm not in the white culture, but from what I've seen of the white culture, police officers are your heroes. Well, firefighters are, but for what I mean, or no, I mean not necessarily how you perceive them, but you guys call the police for everything. Like, they're the ones who are supposed to come and save and rescue just about anything. When there's something that's loud that you don't like, you call the cops because they're supposed to come and stop that. If there's an issue at your house, you call the cops and they're supposed to come and fix that. I mean, like, you expect them to come and be the ones to rescue you, and firefighters come along. I hear what you're saying, but they're your heroes. They're the ones that come in and save you. If there's something that you're scared of, you call the cops. They come and fix it. In our culture, and the culture that I was raised in, I mean, some cultures, African American cultures, are a little bit different. Different regions have different things. But the culture that I was raised in, you don't call the cops for anything, because they're going to make it worse. They're not going to make it better. They're not coming to help you. They're going to turn the table on you, and they're going to make whatever situation that you do not call the police. If you call 911, it better be a medical emergency, and you're actually calling the ambulance. Or you better be calling the fire department, because they're coming to put out an actual fire. You do not call for the police department. That's just not something you do. If there's somebody broke into your house, you deal with it. Maybe you call them to make a report afterwards, but you don't call the police beforehand. And then we see the situation where the neighbor called the cops for that black girl, and the cop shot her through the window. Like, that's why we don't call you guys. I mean, I'm not being but that's the reason because these are not, we're hearing about these stories more, but these are not new stories among the black community. Yeah. We've been saying this stuff for years. We've been saying we don't trust police for these reasons. And that's and I mean, your sister's a police officer. I've worked with police officers. Some of my best friends are police officers. I don't hate police officers. I'm just not trustworthy of you in that uniform. When you have that badge on, you're a different person than you are when you don't have it on. And we don't, in our society, we don't, if something is loud, you go knock on the neighbor's door. Hey, bruh, your music is real loud. I'm trying to sleep over here, blah, blah, blah. Can you please be respectful, blah, and that's what you do. And if they don't comply, then you just deal with it. Or, the next night you turn up your music, that's how we deal with it. And then you get the cops called on you for being, but that's just how in our society we've dealt with it. I remember I was having a discussion with a friend of mine. He was like, well, if something happens to your house, who are you going to call? The police? I'm like, no, I'm not going to call the police. Are you crazy? They're going to come shoot me. No, I won't be calling them, So, I don't know.
And you said something that really started opening my eyes when we first started having these conversations, is that it's not new stuff.
Right.
We're just seeing it more often because there's a camera in everybody's hand.
Exactly.
Now, some of the stuff is convenient.
Oh, yeah.
Just like anything, they're trying to take advantage of the situation after it's already been elevated.
Right.
And so I still think you have to take all those with a grain of salt and do the utmost research before you jump on either side, the police side or the victim side. Because sometimes they really do deserve it. I would say they deserve it. If they get killed for a traffic stop, they don't deserve that.
Right.
But if they're running at a cop with a gun in their hand, they probably deserve to get shot.
Right, yeah.
And if the cop's a good shot, he's gonna kill him. That's. But
my problem is when they're running away from the cop and they get shot in the back. Yeah, like there's the problem.
And that's happened here in our town.
Yeah.
But I do see a lot more of it. But it's not new, like you said.
Right, it's not.
It's everywhere now.
I think if anything that it has shown me that with all the cameras and all this stuff, it doesn't matter what actually happens. People are going to take whatever side they're going to take.
Exactly.
And that's the thing
because there's not enough people. There's not enough people looking at all of the evidence.
Right. It disappoints me to a high degree that no matter, we always be like, well, if you recorded, like, the Rodney King, they recorded that. Nothing is ever going to be, no, I can't say ever, but things are rarely going to be that blatant as they were with the Rodney King incident. Because people realize now, like, oh, somebody could be recording me. Let me do it subtly. Whatever the case may be, whether it's a criminal or whether it's a criminal, a crooked person, whatever. It's going to be done very subtly. And the fact of the matter is it was in instances where you see that the perpetrator was the wrong person. They did blah, 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 blah. The cop had to defend themselves. When you see that without a shadow of a doubt, people are like, yeah, well, the cop could have waited at least a second. I'm like, if somebody's running at you with a machete, I ain't waiting a second. I'm putting them down as quick as I possibly can. That's me, not even being a cop. If you were running at me with a machete with intent in your eyes, I'm going to shoot you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's just the facts. But then on the flip side, there's those times where somebody's like, please don't, pop, 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 or they raise their hand. That was one of your commands. Like you said, put your hands up. You know what I mean? Don't move. Or you shout out 6 different commands and the person's like, I don't know what to do. And then they get shot. Listen,
to me, that's bad training.
It's your fault. You know what I mean? It's
the
your fault
of whoever did it, be it an officer, be it in a bad self-defense situation.
Absolutely, absolutely. But my thing is no matter what happens, people automatically have their bias just ready. It's like it's loaded, so they can fire out their bias. Well, technically, the person should have waited 3 seconds before they moved. Like, what the F? If you don't get out of here with that crap, you know what I'm saying? Like, no, miss me with that. It doesn't matter. My thing is it doesn't matter if somebody doesn't have intent to hurt you and you can't verify their intent to hurt you, you shouldn't take action against them. And if you're not sure about it, you should wait.
Yeah.
And when it comes to police officers, I say this, and I know this is kind of controversial, but this is just the way I feel. Nobody made you take this position. Nobody made you put yourself. They always try to make it seem as if like we should praise them because of the job that they do. Nobody made you become a mechanic. So should you get special praise because the job you do is actually tougher than most people's job? No, you wanted to do this job. So if it's tough, it's the toughness that you've accepted. You've accepted that this is a high octane job. This is a high stress job. Those are the things that you agreed to when you made your oath. When you signed the paper and said that you wanted to be a police officer, those are the things that you agreed to take on. So the fact that, like, oh, well, my life was, I felt that my life, like, you knew you were going to be in a situation where you were going to be scared and you didn't mentally prepare for that.
Yeah.
You knew you should mentally prepare for the fact that I might get shot at, but I need to make sure I take the right steps leading up to that. That person never made that contract. That person who's on the other side of the gun, that person who's on the other, they never made no mental contract or no thing that says, you know what, I'm going to put my life on the, they never made that. They didn't make that contract. So you have to be in a position where you're more willing to take more risk than they are because you made the contract to do that. You decided to put yourself in harm's way. Does that make any sense?
No, it makes perfect sense.
And so whenever I hear them say, well, officer safety, I'm like, I'm not saying officers shouldn't be safe, but citizen safety should be more important than officer safety because citizens didn't ask to be put in that situation. Officers did. Does that make any sense? Like, I didn't ask you to pull me over and walk up to my car. So when you holding on to your gun and you're spouting out officer safety, to me, you're out of line because, first of all, I didn't ask you to walk up to me. And the only reason that there is an issue of unsafety here is because you're walking up with a gun. Well, I don't know. That's not my responsibility. That's not my fault. I don't know if you're a nice person, an evil person. I don't know anything either. So your training puts you in a position of authority and of power, whereas I'm just a regular person who has somebody with a bright light, a loud siren, and a gun, a hand on their gun, walking up to my car window. But I'm supposed to respond with class and dignity and respect and have all my emotions in check. Meanwhile, you can just fly off the handles because officer safety. I hate that. I absolutely hate that. And maybe that's my bias.
Yeah.
But that's just the way I feel.
My biggest, I guess, bias in that arena would be that they can go and shoot somebody, go on their administrative leave, find out that it was not an authorized shooting or whatever, and then get a job again in that same field. That they're not getting charged with murder. I mean, this last lady did. She basically broke into somebody else's apartment on a different floor, shot him, and tried to claim the officer safety bull crap in that situation. I do believe everybody should be safe in their job, but
absolutely,
whatever.
Right.
But I think a reason that the bad seeds keep popping up is because there's no real discipline for them.
Right.
They keep getting away with it.
Right.
Or they keep having crooked unions fight for their jobs
right.
after they've done shady stuff.
Right.
I mean, there's officers in the Phoenix area who tased the guy in his gonads and got away with it, basically. Jesus. For years. And I think that happened back in 2016, and it just barely came up again at the end of 2019. And it's like, number one, he had to pull his pants down to do it.
Yeah.
And there's never any reason to do that. That's spiteful. That's vengeful.
Yeah.
That shows that you can't handle yourself.
Right.
And then to feel that the department backed him up and the police unions backed him up. That's where huge mistrust comes from me.
Yeah. And then that person becomes emboldened. That person feels like, okay, well,
I got away with that. No, let's see what I can do next.
Exactly. And at the very least, I mean, you know how many, when it comes to having your driver's license, when you do something that's kind of like you haven't had an infraction in a long time, and you do something that's kind of like on the fringe, they're like, okay, go back and go to driving school, relearn a few things. And then I think at the very least, some of these people, some of these officers should have to go back through and do some of their academy days again and go back through that stuff again, because obviously what we taught you the first time around didn't sink in. You know what I mean? It didn't get to where it needed to be. You made a mistake, so this is your chance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I feel like that should be your chance.
I definitely think there should be some, like, psychology refreshers or stuff like that. Because think about it, they go through refreshers for driving to keep up on those skills, for shooting all the time to keep up on those skills. But how about the biggest part of it, which is interacting with the public?
Right.
Diffusing a terrible situation.
Yes.
You know, and again, like you said, it may not be the main job, but they accepted that part of that job when they took the oath.
Yes, they took that responsibility on themselves. And that responsibility is something that few other people have ever taken, which, to your credit, okay, great. That means you're willing to do the hard job. You're willing to take but you have to take all of that comes with it. And that doesn't give you a free pass to say like, oh, well, my safety is more important than yours. Me getting home is more important. You asked to go out there and be put in harm's way.
Yeah.
So you getting home isn't more important than the civilian, because they didn't ask to be put in harm's way. Yeah. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to sound like I'm being like oh, you know, the officers' lives don't matter. That's not true at all. All lives matter. And then, oh God, I didn't need to say that crap. Here we go. But no, no, all people's lives are valuable.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's what I was trying to say, Kevin. But all people's lives are valuable. But the ideology that we put emphasis on officers' lives is that as if they're more valuable than a civilian's life kind of makes me upset. I'm like, no, that's garbage, because first of all, at the basic level, they're all on even playing field. Mm-hmm. All lives are equally valuable. All lives are equally meaningful and purposeful. You offered your life to be put into harm's way. Mm-hmm. That was your decision. So if your life ends up being put into more harm's way, that is not anybody else's fault or anybody else's responsibility. But to the other point that you were saying about them, you know, the psychological, I think they need to take a lot more classes, which is what Colin Kaepernick was saying the whole time. They need to take more classes about cultural sensitivities too. When you look at different cultures and interacting with different groups of people, you need to understand what certain hand gestures means. You need to understand what certain reactions means. My people tend to be loud and charismatic. That's just who we are. We're louder and more charismatic. People often take that as being more aggressive. Mm-hmm. I remember plenty of times when you and I used to have conversations and you'd be like, why are you yelling? I'm like, oh, I'm not yelling. I'm just talking. And you'd be like, why are you talking?
I'm just loud.
And I'm like, well, I'm not yelling. we're charismatic people. That doesn't mean I'm aggressive or I'm angry. When we talk about something we're passionate about, we get louder. We look at me, I'm doing my hands and everything else. That's just what we do.
And I think that would play a huge part, because in that, trying to protect oneself, if you knew that going in, you might not get as close to somebody as you would a normal interaction with somebody, because if you don't get as close, you won't be as freaked out when they do a hand gesture.
Exactly.
You won't take that the wrong way, because you can look at the whole picture instead of just looking at their hand, because you're so close to them.
Exactly.
And when you shouldn't have gotten that close to begin with.
Right. And you know, and I'm a firm believer of this too. Like when it comes to, like I said, cultural things. A lot of those times we hear officers say, well, they had something in their hand, so I shot at them. You know, I didn't know what they had in their hand, so I just shot. And I'm like, if they are not pointing a firearm at you, because it's still going to take time for them to pull the trigger. Yeah. You're already trained.
Ready to go.
Why in the world, just because somebody does their arm a certain way or moves a certain way, would you pull the trigger? Like even in the quickest scenario for them to try to pull a gun, like they still have to point it in your direction. That gives you enough time to realize their intent. But the fact that they're like, oh, well, they had a phone in their hand. Everybody has a phone in their hand. To me, that's a scapegoat. To me, that's you knowing that you can always say, oh, they had a phone, or knowing that you always can say they had a banana, or whatever it is. You just know there is my free ticket right there to pull the trigger, because somebody always has a dark object in their hand, and I can always say they pulled something. But if they're not intently pointing an object in your direction, there's no reason for you to pull the trigger.
Well, that right there shows the unfairness of the justice system. Because if I was to do that and I shot somebody and it ended up being they didn't have anything, well, he had a phone in his hand.
Yeah.
Can I get off using that? Absolutely not. I'm going to jail because I shot somebody.
Yep.
But a police officer doesn't, because police lives are more important.
Exactly, because they put themselves on the line. You asked to do that. And there's a video online. It's an older video. I know we probably need to wrap this video up, but there's an older video online, and there's this black guy. He's like on a bus or a train. I'm not sure what it is. But another younger black guy stepped on his foot when he got on the bus, and this black guy is like going off. He's like, "How you gonna step on my foot?" And like he starts clapping and all this stuff. Like he starts doing all these like theatrics, and he's aggressive. I'm gonna kick your butt. Blah 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 blah. If you step on my foot again, I'm gonna take you out. Like he just. But everybody around him was just kind of laughing at him because they know that it's just selling wolf tickets is what we call it. He's just barking. He's just howling. He ain't going to put his hands on anybody. And he's like, and the video's long. It's really funny because the older black guy is like, "Hey, you step on his foot. Step on his foot. You stepped on mine." He's saying all this stuff because he's angry about getting his foot stepped on. And every time I watch that video, I'm like, wow. If there was a police officer in there, they would have hurt that man or killed that man.
Possibly.
And all he was doing was just selling wolf tickets. And because they're not familiar with our culture, they're not familiar with... Even the black guy who he was yelling at was just recording him laughing because he knew this black guy's not going to hit me. He's not going to do anything to me. He's not going to hurt me. He's just upset because I stepped on his foot. And, and that's just... And it seemed like he may have been a little bit special. We like to call him special. He might have been a little bit special. But when I looked at it, I was just like, man, that's sad because I guarantee you they won't show this video in their training. I guarantee you that video where this should be an awesome video for them to show, like, just because somebody is clapping and barking and woofing doesn't mean they're really going to hurt anybody. And there's no excuse for you to hurt this individual. If anything, pull him to the side, talk to him, calm him down, let him know it's all right. The guy apologized and let him go on about their business. But I guarantee that video is not getting shown.
But that's the same thing that they would tell us too,
right.
Regular civilians.
Oh,
it says, you should have de-escalated the situation. You shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have done it.
Absolutely.
But when it's held to them, then it's not. That's my big issue with the unfairness, the inequality in the whole justice system. Is there are groups of people that are not treated the same.
Right. All right. Well, we talked a long time about that, so. Give us one of these.
On the YouTubes. Right here in YouTube.
Yeah.
Try it out. It'll make you feel really good inside.
You ready? Roll that beautiful music. Roll that beautiful music.
Peace. We out.
Roll the beautiful music that I played.